Hey guys, Corey here. Welcome to Blue Talks, and I hope you enjoy this video.
Good afternoon, I'm Dr. Sarah Jefferis. Thank you so much to Blue Talks for hosting this beautiful event. What people don't know about me is that I have a TEDx called Writing as a Prescription for Healing. And I am a 3-time book author. My most recent poetry book called Lucky to Have You. It's about love and luck and loss and how they all hold hands. But what some people really don't know about me is that I am first in my family to go to college and first in my family to go to graduate school. But I have not always been held together by higher education, spirit, and poetry. Let me take you back to Cornell University, 1997, when the temperatures were 30 and 20 and 10 and minus. Minus? And the snow was blowing around me, and I tried to tie on my boots and walk like a penguin down these huge snowy streets. And I could not believe that I had landed at Cornell for a master's in fine arts. There were 500 applicants. I was one of 4. You ever been one of 4? I was completely convinced there was another Sarah. A different Sarah who was supposed to be there. And when they found out that I was there, they would show me the door and exile me out. And I was afraid. So I thought, okay, here is the plan. If I write enough and I read enough and I learn enough, I can buy myself some time to hide. So I would walk over to these beautiful libraries at Cornell and I would see all the stacks and I would pull out the books. And at first I just scribed and scribed and scribed and scribed. And then I flipped the paper over and I decided I'm going to work on these poems. It's poems that got me here. So I took a breath and I tried to write. And every time I wrote, little Sarah appeared. Now, little Sarah had nothing good to say. Little Sarah would always talk about the hands and the eyes and the way the rope wrapped around her wrist. And little Sarah would always talk about the forts and the way her brothers auctioned her off. And little Sarah would always say, no, no, no. Little Sarah would say, please, please stop. Now I looked at little Sarah trying to write those poems and I said, shh, that is not a poem. I said, shh, that poem is crap. Shh, little Sarah, what are you doing? You are not a writer. You are not a writer. You are not a writer. And because what you think is what you become, I started to believe I was not a writer. And the sky turned gray after gray because it's upstate New York. The sun itself abandons us there. And it was very cold. And I thought, I am not a writer. I am not a writer. And I wrapped my scarf around my neck and the mouth of little Sarah, and I found myself on a bridge. And I thought, I'm done. I'm done. I looked down. I saw the rocks and the way the water washed the rocks clean. And I heard, I'm nobody. Are you nobody too? I heard, I am out with lanterns looking for myself. I heard Sarah. I turned around. There was no one behind me. I heard Sarah. There was still no one there. I heard Sarah. Get down. Now, back then, I was not always one to listen to God. I had kind of a hard head, and there was no one behind me. So I took one foot off that bridge. You ever have one foot on a bridge and one foot off? And I pulled out a piece of paper, and I thought, I'm going to stand here, and I'm going to write this poem. I'm going to write it for all the other women who are coming behind me. All the other women who are tired of the hands and the eyes and the way that some men won't stop staring. I'm going to write it for them. So I put a hand on a heart and a hand on a belly, and I took a deep breath. And I started to write. And with every breath came a new line. With every breath came a new image. With every breath, I had a new idea. And I wrote and wrote and wrote. And I put it in my pocket. And I thought, I'm going to take my foot off the bridge. And I'm going to leave the bridge for now. And I shivered walking back to my studio, and I made some soup. And I pulled out my notebook and I said, God, if you are who you say you are, if you are for real, show me. And I fell asleep, my head on the desk and the pen in hand. And in the morning, when I woke up, I had a poem. And in the next morning, I woke up and I got up earlier and earlier and earlier because the poems arrived in the mornings. Here is one. How grateful. I do not write about being the poor girl. I do not write about sitting in the back of the gas station laundromat, the heat of the dryer spinning the yellow tables, the bent metal baskets, counting change till my mama gets off work. I do not write about my mama, who post-dates checks to cover ice cream, pig's feet, Campbell's chunky beef noodle soup from the gas station. I vow to eat less. I do not write about the flying roaches or the constant unpacking and packing of bug bombs. I do not write about those cotton sheets flapping in the wind that I hung on the clothesline, how grateful I am. I do not write about how grateful I am that the blood finally came at 10 because it stopped my brother's hand. Now I believe that poetry can save you in your darkest moments. I believe that poetry will meet you on that bridge and call your name. I believe that poetry will hold your hand when you have it wrapped around a bottle. And I am convinced that part of my medicine is to help you find the writer in your head, with the writer in your mouth, with the writer in your heart. And when we are working on poetry, when we are in alignment, we have to ask, what if? And not the kind of what if that's a disaster, but the other kind. What if it works out better than I thought? What if I have not met everyone who will fall in love with me? What if abundance could continually flow into my life? The poem offers us a question of what if. The poem is a house to live in, a place to see ourselves differently, outside of the past and outside of the current circumstance. Your writing self can open you to the divine. Your writing self knows more about you than you do. Your writing self could recall Habakkuk, write the vision and make it plain so that we can run with it, run with your vision, run to your vision. And here's the thing, we may not see the vision with our external eyes, but if we get quiet and we go within and we inhale and we exhale and we return to the breath, then the vision will arrive. We can see anew. The poem holds the future you that the present you is waiting to meet. I am Dr. Sarah Jefferis, and I know for sure that we cannot heal from what we don't speak. We cannot heal from what we don't write. And I also know for sure that my writing self and your writing self are not alone. They have, as Liz Gilbert said, a genius to guide her, a muse, and so do you. What if we call out, Muse? What if we knew, like we knew, like we knew that the muse was always with us? And finally, a poem from the very end of the manuscript called What If? What if this is a love-in and not a lockdown? What if the restlessness is a teacher on how to rest? What if fear and faith are the same thing, belief in the unseen? What if the unseen is a good place? What if the seen is average? What if I don't have to build and build and build a new home, but could find one with my breath? What if nervousness became a lighter nerve? What if love was the first and only answer? I'm Dr. Sarah Jefferis. Thank you.